There is a kind of exhaustion that does not come from doing too much. It comes from carrying too much. Not luggage, not objects, old expectations, dead ambitions, emotional debts, invisible obligations, versions of yourself that should have been released a long time ago. And the strange thing is, most people do not even realize they are still carrying them. They just feel heavy. They feel tired in a way that sleep does not fix. They feel distracted in a way that focus techniques do not fix. They feel guilty in a way that productivity cannot heal. Because the real weight is not on your schedule. It is in your identity. You are not always tired because your life is full. Sometimes you are tired because your inner world is crowded with things that no longer belong there. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may realize that the peace you have been looking for is not hidden in adding more to your life. It is hidden in finally deciding what no longer matters. That is the heart of emotional minimalism. Not coldness, not emptiness, not numbness. Clarity. The kind of clarity that lets you put something down without apologizing for it. The kind of clarity that says, this mattered once, but it does not own me anymore. We are taught to believe that quitting is failure. That if you stop caring, you are weak. That if you let go of a goal, a role, a relationship, or an old dream, you are giving up on yourself. But that is not always true. Sometimes quitting is not failure. Sometimes it is intelligence. Sometimes it is maturity. Sometimes it is the first honest thing you have done in years. Because there is a moment when something alive becomes something heavy. A dream becomes a debt. A hope becomes a habit. A goal becomes a costume. A calling becomes a burden. And if you do not notice that moment, you can spend years feeding something that has already died. That is what I call a ghost ambition. A ghost ambition is a dream that no longer lives in your heart, but still lives in your obligations. It is the thing you still say you care about because you already spent so much time on it. It is the project you keep touching, even though it no longer moves you. It is the version of success you are still chasing because it once made you feel important. It is the path you keep walking because turning around would force you to admit that you outgrew it. And that admission is hard. Not because you are lazy, not because you are weak, but because the human heart hates waste. We do not like to feel that our past effort was for nothing. So we keep going. We keep pushing. We keep saying, maybe I just need more time. But sometimes more time is not the answer. Sometimes more time only makes the lie more expensive. That is the sunk cost of the soul. The more we invest in something dead, the harder it becomes to release it. And this is not only about work or goals. It can happen in relationships, in identities, in beliefs, in the need to be seen a certain way, in the old story of who you thought you were supposed to become. You may still be obeying a life that ended years ago. You may still be performing for a version of your parents, your peers, your younger self, or the world that no longer exists. And if that is true, no wonder you feel exhausted. Because you are not just living your life. You are trying to maintain a museum of old versions of yourself. That is emotional clutter. And emotional clutter is harder to see than physical clutter. You can look at a messy room and know something needs to be cleaned. But how do you clean a room inside your own mind? How do you declutter guilt? How do you throw away an old ambition without feeling like you are throwing away your worth? How do you admit that something once important is now just taking up space? That is where emotional minimalism begins. Not with dramatic rejection, with honest observation. Ask yourself this: what am I still carrying only because I once carried it? What am I still feeding only because I already fed it for so long? What am I still protecting only because I am afraid to admit it is gone? These are not easy questions, but they are liberating questions, because they separate loyalty from bondage. A lot of people think they are being loyal to their past, but they are actually being trapped by it. There is a difference. Loyalty says, I honor what mattered. Bondage says, I must keep living as if it still does. That difference can change your life, because once you see it clearly, you begin to understand that not every obligation deserves your energy. Not every expectation deserves your attention. Not every cause, goal, role, or relationship belongs on the finite shelf of your heart. And yes, that word matters. Finite. Your heart is not infinite in the way guilt wants you to believe. Your attention is not infinite. Your emotional energy is not infinite. Your capacity to care deeply is not infinite. And that is not a weakness. That is wisdom. Because the moment you accept your limits, you stop wasting your life trying to be available to everything. And when you stop trying to care about everything, You begin to care more honestly about the few things that are actually alive. That is the real power of emotional minimalism. It is not the elimination of feeling. It is the refinement of feeling. It is choosing what deserves your depth and what deserves to be released. And that choice is radical, because modern culture trains us to feel guilty for not carrying everything. We are told that a good person is always informed, always concerned, always reacting, always emotionally available, always carrying the world on their back. But that is not goodness. That is moral exhaustion. And moral exhaustion is dangerous because it makes everything feel equally urgent. When everything matters, nothing has shape. When every problem becomes your problem, your life becomes a constant emergency. You wake up already behind. You scroll, and your nervous system tightens. You hear about another demand, another expectation, another benchmark, another thing you should care about. And slowly, your heart gets noisy. Not tender. Noisy. There is a difference. Tenderness is selective. Noise is chaotic. Tenderness knows when to open. Noise knows only how to react. That is why emotional minimalism is not indifference. It is discernment. It is the power to say, "This no longer deserves my inner space." And sometimes that sentence is not a sign of selfishness. It is a sign of survival. Because there are things you can keep caring about until they hollow you out. There are dreams you can keep chasing until they become prison bars. There are people you can keep trying to save until you disappear from your own life. There are identities you can keep performing until you no longer know who you are without the performance. So how do you know when something has become a ghost? You can feel it. A living desire gives energy, even when it is hard. A ghost ambition only gives pressure. A living desire pulls you forward with some sense of aliveness. A ghost ambition pulls on you with guilt. A living desire may challenge you, but it still feels true. A ghost ambition feels like a script you keep reciting because you are afraid to stop. A living desire may require effort, but it does not feel like emotional debt. A ghost ambition always feels like payment. That is the difference. And once you notice it, you can begin to separate the alive from the dead. You can ask, do I still want this, or do I just not want to admit I changed? Do I care about this, or do I care about what it once said about me? Am I still here because I love it, or because I already spent too much on it? These questions are uncomfortable, but discomfort is often the doorway to freedom. Because the truth is, many of us are not tired from living. We are tired from pretending not to notice what we have outgrown. That pretending takes energy, a lot of energy. It costs mental clarity. It costs emotional honesty. It costs peace. And for what? To preserve an image? To avoid disappointment? To keep the old story alive for one more year? Maybe the real bravery is not in carrying more. Maybe the real bravery is in becoming selective, in saying no without shame, in putting something down without needing to call it noble, in recognizing that your life is allowed to change shape. That is the art of cold clarity, not cruel clarity. Clear clarity, the kind that cuts through fog without cutting through your humanity. The kind that says, I do not owe every old promise a lifetime of attention. The kind that says, not everything that was once meaningful must remain sacred forever. The kind that says, I can honor what was without continuing to feed what is dead. That is not betrayal. That is truth. And truth creates space. Empty space. The kind of space that feels uncomfortable at first because you are so used to being crowded. But empty space is not a failure. It is a gift. It is the room your life needed in order to breathe again. It is the space where new desires can actually be heard. It is the silence that lets your real voice return. It is the pause that allows your next chapter to exist. You cannot receive a new life while still holding every old one. You cannot hear what is true for you now if the room is full of ghosts. So emotional minimalism asks a simple question. What can you stop carrying today? Not forever. Just today. What do you not need to think about anymore? What do you not need to prove anymore? What do you not need to perform anymore? What dream has become a debt? What obligation is wearing the mask of purpose? What burden are you calling identity? This is where your freedom begins. Not in doing more. In releasing what no longer deserves a place in your inner world. And when you do that, something surprising happens. You become lighter, not empty in the sad sense. Lighter in the truthful sense. Your mind becomes less crowded. Your attention becomes more precise. Your energy becomes less fragmented. Your spirit becomes easier to move. You start noticing what is actually alive. A real desire. a real connection, a real yes, a real no. And those become sacred because they are no longer buried under noise. That is the power of an empty space. It gives your life shape again. It gives your heart breathing room. It lets your real priorities rise to the surface. And maybe that is the deepest form of self-respect. Not trying to care about everything. Not trying to save every old version of yourself. Not trying to keep every dream alive out of guilt. But choosing, with honesty, what is still worthy of your finite heart. Because your heart is precious precisely because it is limited. Your attention is precious because it is limited. Your life is precious because it cannot be spent twice. So spend it carefully. Spend it on what is alive. Spend it on what is true. Spend it on what still calls you forward. And let the rest go. If this message resonated with you, stay close to this channel. This is where we talk about the deeper patterns behind healing, identity, meaning, and inner transformation. If this video helped you see something more clearly, subscribe so you do not miss the next one. If you found value in this reflection, like the video so it can reach more people who are ready to let go of what no longer matters. And if you feel safe, leave a comment with one honest sentence. What is one thing you are ready to stop carrying?